Hello and welcome to the Tough Girl Podcast, a 3-time award-winning show that aims to motivate and inspire you while increasing the amount of female role models in the media, especially in relation to adventure and physical challenges. I'm your host, Sarah Williams. If you're passionate about adventure, challenge and learning from women who have overcome obstacles and achieved remarkable things, then this is the podcast for you. Every Tuesday at 7 a.m, new episodes go live featuring incredible women who share their stories, insights and tips to help you achieve your dreams and goals. You can support the Tough Girl mission by signing up as a patron. Visit Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast. Keep listening until the very end as I share more information about what's going on with me with Tough Girl Challenges, give shout outs and recommend other Tough Girl Podcast episodes. More information can be found at toughgirlchallenges.com.
I'm Naomi Rumble, 31. I'm currently based in London. So as a kind of 9 to 5, I work in market research. That's what I mainly do. But then in terms of extracurricular things, I support running a cycling club. So I do that. And I also teach swimming 2 evenings a week. And then I try and fit in everything else sporty around that as well.
Did you grow up in London? London girl, city girl? Did you get opportunities to go outdoors, play sports? What was your childhood like?
Yeah, so I'm London born and bred. As a child, my mum did always try and put me into sport. So in terms of swimming, I've been swimming since I was 4. So whilst I learned in primary school and we had sessions like once a week, my mum paid for Saturday lessons. So I did that every weekend. And then when I get slightly older with swimming, there was kind of a local club that trained 2 evenings a week on a Tuesday and a Thursday. So I would train with them. So that's kind of where my swimming background comes from. On top of that, my mum also got me into taekwondo. So I used to do taekwondo as a child. I think I stopped when I was around 10 years old or so, maybe slightly younger, but I didn't carry that through into secondary. I'm kind of a person that also starts a sport, stops a sport, just tries to figure out what they like. So in secondary school, I would play netball, a bit basketball, did shot put, sometimes tried a bit of discus. Yeah, those were kind of the things I did within school. Moving into kind of college, I didn't really do that many sports. Maybe had a go at basketball, but I wasn't really that involved in sport. And then when I got to university, I then tried my hand at a number of different sports. So I went to the swim society. I did a bit of boxing. I picked up a bit of archery, which I used to kind of do when I was in the Scouts. So I was part of the Scouts for a long time as well. I stopped when I was about 13. And yeah, so I've done sports in small bits, but I've never been fully consistent with a sport all the way through. Probably the most consistent I was with swimming, but then I stopped when I was in secondary school around 14 because it was all the hair and everything that was a mission. So I stopped that altogether.
I love the fact that you said that you sort of tried many things to figure out what you actually liked. And I sometimes think that can almost be not a problem, but sometimes it's so difficult. But people don't necessarily want to try new things because they know that they're not going to necessarily be very good at it. And so it can be hard for people to step outside of their comfort zone. Have you always sort of been willing to give new things a go? Is that just something that's within you, or do you know why that is?
Yeah, I always give new things a go. I think it's because I get stimulated by lots of different things. I think if I stick to one thing, I get quite bored. So I always like a new challenge or to see whether I can do it, or because you never know, you can try it and you might love it. So why not kind of try and give it a go? And I think it's also the environment you're in, because when it came to when I was younger, my mum pushed me into those sports and that was fine. Secondary school, they allowed you to have many different opportunities. to try what you liked and what you didn't like. And I think fostering that culture within the school is really good because then it exposes people to what's actually possible and what different sports they can take up. So yeah, I think that was quite key for me.
Did you see many women? Did you have many sort of role models, women who looked like you, who you could look up to as like a role model thinking, especially I suppose in the swimming space? Like, were there many women that you could see and be inspired by?
I would say in where I was brought up in the school I went to, it was actually like a majority black school. My swimming club as well that I joined, they had quite a few older black girls also swimming. So I could see them swim while I was there and I can get motivated and encouraged by them. But I know not everyone has that. And it really depends on the borough at which you grow up in. So I had quite a bit of exposure to that. So I could see people that looked like me doing those sports at a young age. Now, when I got older, that changed because my environment expanded. But definitely as a younger person, I had family members as well that were taking part in sports or, friend to friend. So that was more where I was encouraged to take up particular sports.
How was it leaving like university, getting a full-time job, working the 9 to 5? Did sports play a role then, or is that just something that sort of ended up drifting off to the side?
It definitely drifted off. I can't remember really doing much sport at all after I left university. And even towards leaving university, I had more or less dropped off sport altogether. So I'm just thinking, did I really do? I might have gone into the pool once or twice, but I wasn't running because I don't really like running. I still don't to this day, but it's something that's growing on me. Cycling, I didn't have a bike. The last time I had cycled was when I was really, really young, probably primary school. I can really remember cycling regularly. So no, sport wasn't really a thing. I would always be in and out of the gym. That was kind of my main fitness thing, but that was never consistent. I would go for about 3 or so months, then drop off for 6. So there was kind of no consistency there for me in sporting at all, really, after I left university.
And at the gym, was that sort of more, was that weights or was that still quite sort of cardio focused?
It was more weights. I've never really been, apart from swimming, which is because I find swimming quite easy for me. I've never really been a full cardio person. I've always focused on strength training because that came easier to me. I'm more power based and now I'm cardio based. So that's what I went for. And running on a treadmill for a bit, I was like, yeah, that was my warm up. I was not doing an hour session on the treadmill. And to this day, treadmill running is very, very difficult for me. So yeah, it was more weights based, free weights, machines, or on the odd occasion I would take up a class. But yeah, not really much cardio.
Now, I know things sort of really sort of changed for you during COVID when that sort of became a real catalyst for you to do sports more consistently. Would you like to share a little bit more about how that happened and how the consistency started and why COVID was that catalyst for you?
Yeah, definitely. We can maybe I would say rewind a year before. So when it came to cycling, now my dad used to commute to work on a bike and he used to do London to Brighton quite regularly. So it was the British Heart Foundation one on Father's Day. So a lot of the time I would then just meet him in Brighton. He would always ask, "Oh, when are you going to do London to Brighton with me? We can do it together, etc." So we had the discussion in 2018 and then I said, okay, let's do it. At this time, I didn't have a bike at all. So that kind of was my reason into starting to cycle. So I went on this wellness holiday in 2019 in Jan, had to do a little cycle there. I was like, oh, okay, I can still ride. That was good because London to Brighton was coming up and I had not trained at all. Bought the bike 3 months before and was basically commuting to work on it just to get my confidence up. My dad was taking me around parks and then I ended up doing laps around Richmond Park, it's a very common spot for cyclists to go and train. So I was doing that because there are a few hills there and Brighton is quite hilly. So I used that for my training. So when it came into 2019 in June, that was my first really cycling event, doing London to Brighton. I think it's about 54 miles or so. And that was kind of a beautiful achievement and entry into cycling with my dad. But then the bike basically got locked away. I had a reason for the bike and then I didn't have a reason. So it sat in a room until COVID happened. And at this point, I wanted to be able to get out, get some fresh air, not locked up at home. So I was thinking, okay, there's this bike here. Let me go out and use it. So that's when I started getting into cycling properly. And then there was a kind of a break in the lockdown, and I was looking online for cycling clubs. And a lot of these cycling clubs were quite intimidating for me because they wanted you to ride at a particular speed, a lot faster than I was able to go. The bike that I had was also a hybrid bike, like T-bars. It wasn't a road bike or a super fancy, expensive one. And I didn't clip in to the pedals either. So I didn't meet a lot of the criteria that they would want to kind of join a club. So I just kept searching. And then on Facebook, I came across a group called Together We Ride. Now, they were very new. The founder, Wayne Francis, so he was more or less new entering into the full cycling space. He had cycled before, but really finding a group, he realized he needed to set one up of his own. So one day I decided to join them on a ride to Box Hill. Box Hill was like a staple for cycling clubs. So because I had done London to Brighton kind of the year before, I felt it was going to be quite an easy challenge. I was completely wrong. I really, really struggled on that ride. But everyone there was super supportive because the aim was really to encourage people to get into the cycling space, get into it for health and wellness, better mental health. Just go and see the sights of London on your bike. So they were super supportive, super friendly. But I must admit, after that ride, I didn't go back and join them. It must have been for a couple of months or so after that. And the main thing was because I didn't feel that I was up to standard. While there was an environment there where they would still have encouraged me to go along with them, I wanted to build up my fitness a bit more. And so with that, I was again commuting to work and doing Richmond Park collapse until I decided to join them again and go a lot more regularly. So much so that I got so much stronger. And then they started wanting me to support them on some rides with other people that were slightly newer and not as strong on the bike. And then that's how my role sort of started to grow within TWR itself. To the fact that now Wayne asked me to come in, be a director of the club itself to support with the running. So that was my entry, I would say, into sporting more regularly during COVID. It was one of the main catalysts to me getting into really all the other sports, because through TWR, Take Every Ride, I started meeting people who were running, who were swimming more often, who were actually doing triathlon, because while I'd watched triathlon on TV previously, I hadn't really thought about doing it myself until I met some people within TWR that were actually doing triathlon. So it really expanded my view on kind of what sports are possible or what sports I would want to go on and kind of take up. So that's how COVID was kind of the catalyst into me doing the sports I'm really doing now.
How did those conversations go? Like, was it a case of people saying, you can totally do this. You would be an amazing runner. You could definitely do a triathlon. So it was was it like people's belief in you, or was it a case of your confidence just changing over time, as in you could see yourself getting stronger and fitter, and then, you were able to help and assist the newer members? What was it that I suppose gave you the confidence or the self-belief to say, okay, yeah, actually, I am going to sign up for the next race, the next challenge? Do you know what that was?
I think it was mainly seeing others doing it. So there's a couple called Jojo Morgan and Tim Morgan, amazing couple. They do triathlon regularly and they've been doing it for so many years. And it was kind of watching them do triathlon. We went to one of their events. So Jojo did, I can't remember what it was called at this time because the event changes its name every year, but it's the triathlon that happens at the London itself. And he set her a challenge to do it within a particular time frame. And if she completed it, he would get her a new bike. So we all went along to kind of support her and really just see what triathlon kind of was, and the whole race and the whole atmosphere was really amazing. And that was encouraging for me. And then there's Kelly Smith. She does that tribe. I then went along to one of her kind of beginner events and she was doing it. So because of those people and seeing them doing triathlon, there was encouragement and they were like, oh, there should really be a group of us to go and do triathlon and, you know, really expose people to what this sport is and just increase diversity within the sport and participation within the sport. So it was, those were kind of key people initially that really opened my eyes to triathlon and really wanting to give it a go right at the beginning. So there were some events initially during lockdown that they wanted to encourage us to kind of sign up to, but like things were being cancelled, or there was like a taster event initially and they were like reducing the swim significantly, or they had to cancel the swim because of pool space. But exposure to kind of those events, it was to be like, okay, this is what it would look like to participate in an actual triathlon, do a full event. And so that really gave me an insight into these are the three different disciplines and this is how it is organized, this is how it's run. And so it kind of spurred me on to want to sign up for a full event, but I still wasn't quite sure whether it was something I wanted to take on for the long term. But then there was this cycling event with Women of Colour Cycling Collective. And so they also had meetups during lockdown, but they hadn't really met for a while in person. So they had this event in Regent's Park that I went along to. And then we went back to a space just to chill and get to know each other. And this is where I met Bianca Fernandez, who started to fund her Try UK. And so that whole aim is to really get people into triathlon, well, get women into triathlon, remove the barrier of triathlon, because triathlon is very expensive, very, very expensive. So my friend that was there, Brenda, as soon as Bianca kind of mentioned her initiative of this, I was kind of pushed in her direction to go, you can sign up for this, you can do this triathlon. And so I ended up becoming the first sponsored athlete for Fund Her Try UK. And then with that, they gave me support. So they gave me a coach, Lauren, she's based out in the States. And I got a full training plan. So my aim was to work towards doing an Olympic distance triathlon at Dorney Lake. And I got all the support I needed. I was probably a bit over optimistic with my training because my coach said, do you want any breaks during training? I was like, no, I can train every day. It's fine. So the training would have started around the end of the year, around November, December time, for me to then do a triathlon in May. But I quite quickly realized that triathlon training is very, very, very intensive. Very intensive. So within the training plan, I was having 2 or so sports a day, whether it was a swim bike or a swim run. And then to do that throughout the week, it ended up taking a toll on me a bit. I think it's because I didn't respect how much it was going to take and the time it was going to take until I actually started doing it. And one thing I realized as well, my fueling or my diet wasn't adequate for taking on all this additional stress on my body. So while training for it, I did have like a mini collapse, like my body just started shutting down. And at that point, coach was like, you need to rest. It's fine taking a week out for rest, but we really need to up your protein because you're not getting enough protein to sustain your training. So that was also an eye opener for me, but I was very, very dedicated. Because one thing with me as well, sport doesn't necessarily replace the other things that I have going on in my life. I know some people put sport over social activities and everything else, but I like a bit of everything. So I remember one time I had this panel talk, and then I went from that. I think I finished at about 10 p.m. Yeah, there was a viewing of like cycling films. I was on a little panel, then got home and went out to ride my bike. It must have been at about 11:30 or something at night to get my training in. Now, I was very dedicated at that point to make sure I stuck to my plan. But then eventually, I think I started to waver a bit. I went, okay, now this maybe it's a bit too much. Then I started to skip some sessions. And then I was like, oh, do I really have to do this? So a lot of the training, it takes a lot of discipline, and you can't focus on motivation getting you through it. And I realized that it has to just be dedication and discipline. But it got me there. It got me to do my Olympic distance triathlon with Dorney. That was what, a 1,500 meter swim. It was a 38K bike, and then it was a 10K run at the end. But I had to put in some serious hard work for that. But that's also where I had my first experience of kind of hyperventilating cold water as well. So cold water swimming, open water swimming is something that's still very new to me. And I only did open water swimming as I know it because of triathlon. So I'd swum in the sea when I've been on holiday, and that's never really been an issue for me. But cold water in the UK is just totally different. There's this lady called Jane as part of Fund, her Tri UK as well, who was training for her triathlon. And so for a couple of sessions, I think I started the swimming in kind of March time, so the water was still cold. But I started to meet her, so we would go and do some sessions together and just get used to what the feeling would be in that cold water. It's something to get used to because then your body starts to, your heart starts racing a bit more, your breathing starts going a bit more, and it's about being able to be relaxed. And I don't like anything cold. I get cold really easily, but I felt I had enough sessions. It wasn't too many. I could probably count it in one hand, but I felt I'd had enough sessions outdoors to really prepare me for the temperature of Dorney Lake. But when I got in there, I think it all fell apart. It was, while there were waves, you all started in the water at the same time. And I had advice before so you don't get kicked or swum over or pulled, or because that's all part of the sport itself. You should start further back and maybe slightly to the outside, so you don't get pulled into that washing machine effect when people start swimming. And I felt I did start far enough back, but I don't think that was really the case. So when I started swimming, I didn't really start at an easier pace. I probably started at a faster pace to make sure I was keeping up with those slightly in front and not being swum over by those behind me. And with my body not adapting to the cold either, I think my breathing just went really bad, really off. So it was at that point I had to basically just stop in the water. One thing they tell you to do is kind of lie on your back and breathe. And that's what I had to do. I had to lie on my back, breathe, recoup, start again. And then I started swimming breaststroke for a lot of it, just to keep my head above water. Then my goggles were steaming and getting blurry and foggy. So I started to panic slightly, but there was someone in the water, another swimmer that was checking up on me. And that was really nice. And they stayed with me for a bit. And there are also help on kayaks that watch you as well. But I was determined to make it through to the end. And this was really new to me because I've been swimming all my life and swimming had never really been that difficult for me. But this was a totally different experience. And it took me more than halfway to actually adapt to the water. And then the rest of the 500 meters or whatever I had to swim, I was a totally different swimmer from the person that actually entered the water, totally two different people. And so now every time I get into cold water or like I do an event, that it's always kind of stuck in my mind. And it brings back that fear of don't hyperventilate, keep calm, make sure you put water down your suit to, trap a layer of water to heat your system up. And it definitely makes me nervous every time I go into open water now because of that experience. But I know what I need to do to now overcome some of the issues that I had the first time doing an open water triathlon. It still gives me a bit of anxiety when I go in the water, but now I've done enough open water events since that to tell me that actually I can do it. But there's always something in the back of my head that makes me a bit nervous on that front. And sorry, I've gone off in a full tangent from the initial question you asked.
No, that honestly, it was really fascinating, really interesting, like talking through. Because actually, my question for you was going to be around, before you sort of started doing triathlons, did you have any concerns, fears, or barriers? And, because of your background in swimming, you probably wouldn't have put the swimming sort of up there, but the cold water adds a very different element to it. And I suppose when you reflect back to before you started, one of the barriers you talked about was the expense of doing a triathlon, and you got this incredible opportunity to get the support with a coach and a training plan to help you go after your Olympic distance triathlon. But sort of when you were sort of at the beginning and you're not quite sure if you were going to commit to it, did you have any other sort of concerns or fears?
Yeah, like you said, I didn't think that swimming was going to be one of the concerns for me. I thought it was going to be my strongest, to be honest. I didn't think it was going to cause an issue, but I was wrong on that point. My other thing was running. So I'm not a runner. I really don't like running.
Can I just interrupt you? Because you've done a lot of running though.
Well, the running really came about because, oh, are you saying I've done a lot of running because the other sports that I was kind of doing when I was younger, or
No, because
because,
you've got like loads of like pictures of you running and
oh,
with medals and
so that came about because of triathlon. So
okay, so after, but you still don't call yourself a runner?
no, I'm learning to do so. I'm
Hold on, but
starting
what's the longest distance that you have run?
a marathon.
A marathon. Okay. So you have run 42 kilometers, 26.2 miles. I'm trying not to.
Yeah, I ran walked it. Yeah. Um, yeah, no, it's very hard for me to call myself a runner because of how much I don't like running and how difficult I find it.
What don't you like about it and what do you find difficult?
One, because I'm not a fast runner, it takes me forever to get round. The breathing is a whole other thing with running. I overheat very quickly. It's just the experience of running isn't always the best for me. It depends. Like when I do events with the different running clubs and we all show up together and I do like the feeling at that point. And that's why running is growing on me because of the community aspect. But if I went to run by myself and there weren't any communities when I started running, I probably wouldn't have continued running. Yeah, it's one, I started running because there was a purpose for me to do so. And two, I continue to run because of the community surrounding the running space, not necessarily running for running's sake.
Yeah. But if we break down those four things, so you feel as though you're not fast enough, breathing, you overheat, and then the fourth one, what did you say? Experience?
Yeah.
Yeah, you just don't like the
Yeah.
actual experience. Why does the speed matter to you, or is that just, I don't know, like is that like almost a limiting belief that you can't be a runner unless you're fast?
I think that's one thing. It's definitely a limiting belief there. And you always get things thrown to you on social media as well. You get these really fast runners going, if you jeff it or whatever. So run, walk, because I've started to run, walk longer distances because it's just easier on the joints and everything like that. Then, oh, these are not proper runners or X, Y, and Z. And it is always comparing yourself to other people. Ooh.
Yeah.
And it's that comparison thing going, oh, I wish I was that fast. I wish I was that. But I also know some people are natural runners and that's great for them. Other people put in so much work and dedication to get to where they are. And there are some friends that I have that have put in so much work that they're nowhere near where they started. And I know with hard work, I can probably get somewhere near that. It's just putting in that work. But the love for running is growing slowly because now I'm entering running events for the sake of it rather than going, oh, I'm entering this race because I have an event coming up. So that's now training, X, Y, and Z. I will go to like track sessions because I enjoy the people around it who are going there. So yeah, it's changing. It's changing slowly.
I hope I've made this apparent, but I have basically like one rule on the podcast, which is basically there's no comparisons because no matter which way you slice it, like there's always going to be somebody faster than you. There's always going to be somebody slower than you. There's always going to be someone who runs in a different style to you. And it's what works for you. And I honestly, I think jaffing is a phenomenal technique. And I think that's a brilliant way to cover distances, like to run, walk, run, walk. If it makes the whole thing really enjoyable, it helps you manage your breathing. It's, like you say, it's like easier on your joints. It's probably going to stop you overheating. It's going to make you enjoy the experience more. I'm literally like, get jeffing, like, oh my God. And ignore, like, they don't know. I mean, I know it's easy to say, it's like, well, they don't know you and their opinion actually doesn't matter at all because it's not, their opinion is not why you run. Like,
Yeah, 100%.
yeah. But I think so. I think everyone sort of knows this, and it's very easy to say when, social media, the keyboard warriors come out. But you must have had let's talk about the marathon. Like, so 26.2 miles, 42 kilometers. How was the experience? What were some of the highlights? What were some of the bits that, when you look back, you're like, oh my God, that was just epic.
So yeah, the experience and even being able to do the London Marathon was, so I didn't even think I was going to be able to do a marathon. My first half marathon was last year, the big half, that I didn't even think I was going to be able to do before Bianca said I should just do it. And then when I got the London Marathon space and I was going to do that, yeah, I was a bit overwhelmed with the distance, but being provided with a training plan for it and just working my way up to that distance. Because my Sunday long runs were very long Sundays. And that was hard work. They do say all the hard work gets put in during training. Like on the day of the marathon, you are just there to enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I felt it was. So on the day of the marathon itself, I started running with a few friends of mine from my one of my running clubs, Emancipated Run Crew. So we started out together. We were there for about 15K together. And it was just lovely talking to each other, seeing people along the course, like smiling, hugs, pictures, everything, because the aim was really just to enjoy it and celebrate all of my training that I'd put in. And my dad also came out to see me. So he was following me along the marathon route as well. So I saw him multiple times along the route, which was nice. So it was just taking in the atmosphere. The atmosphere of the London Marathon is absolutely amazing. And so the beginning, like the first half or so of it, I found really quite easy compared to if I was just doing a half marathon on its own. It was really enjoyable. I had my music, the whole atmosphere and jokes. And then I think I ended up leaving a couple of people that I initially started running with. And I then tried to catch up to a pacer that we ended up having to drop because we had to stop for a bit. And that was probably the worst mistake I could have made because then I started going faster than I probably should have done. And it was hot as well. And I always run with a bladder or water flask or something because I need to take on more water than they do have at the actual stops. And then the overheating came and then the tiredness came and everything like that. But as I said, because my dad was also following me along the stops, every time I saw him, it would be like a boost. So yeah, the second half was definitely a lot harder and slightly less enjoyable, but just the achievement of being there for one, putting in all of that training and then being able to get to the end was, yeah, it was absolutely amazing. Like I was so happy. I really couldn't walk after that. I just needed to find a floor and just sit down, which I did until my dad came and found me. I just couldn't. I was slumped against a lamppost. But yeah, no, it was an amazing experience. And I would say I would do another marathon. I don't think I would ever do one, but now I think I definitely would do a second one if the opportunity came. And it just shows being exposed to different things or being given different opportunities kind of can change your thinking about what is possible or what potentially you'd want to do next. Because eventually I do want to go on and do an Ironman, and you have to run a marathon at the end. And that's the one thing that's putting me off. Because I'll do the swim, I'll do the cycle, but running a marathon at the end of it is what actually scares me. So yeah, no, it was a good opportunity to show actually I can go out and do a marathon. I would love to actually do another one again. And I can't believe I'm saying
that. You said it now. But I just want to delve into something that you said. So, sort of the first half, really enjoyable. It sounds as though, you had your music, there was definitely good vibes, good energy. But then the second half definitely became less enjoyable. But you persevered,
that.
you got on with it. And I think that's what I want to dig into. So for the second half, how and why did you persevere? Like what kept you going? What were your tactics? Did you have any tactics? Was it mental? Was it emotional? Was it actually okay? Let's get into a rhythm. Let's do jeffing. Let's do walk, run, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, whatever. What did you do in that second half to push on through so that you didn't quit, that you actually finished and you achieved what you set out to achieve?
So always coming into the events, my aim is to finish. Like even if I have one goal and I don't achieve it, my ultimate goal is to be able to finish. So it is a bit of mental toughness trying to push me and get to the end. And it did also mean changing what my initial tactics were because I was jeffing from the start. So I was doing like 10 minutes on running and then 1 minute walking. And then I started to have to change that. And then it came to a point, it was just like, do you know what? If you want to stop and walk for a bit. It's not the end of the world. You'll just make it to the end. And it was just breaking things down into smaller chunks that were a bit more manageable for me. And then really just talking to myself constantly until I saw a pacer. So a pacer started coming by me, and then I jumped onto that group. And that's how I then made it to the end. But yeah, it was a bit of self-talking, making things a bit more manageable, smaller chunks, and then sticking to a pacer to just pull me through all the way to the end. Yeah, those were the tactics I used.
So the self-talking, talking to yourself, Naomi, like pretend we're inside your head right now. What would you be saying to yourself?
In terms of with me breaking it into smaller chunks as well, I'll go like, oh, you've only got a minute left. You've got this until you can start walking again, and then you can rest. Like it's not that far to go. You've done this before. It's only a minute. So I would be saying that a lot of the time, or just saying, you've got this. The aim is just to make it to the end. Like you've come so far. You've done all of this in training. Like this is now just a celebration. Yeah, it's mainly those words that I was saying to myself.
And are you quite good when it starts getting negative? Because sometimes for me, I have, well, this was a stupid idea, wasn't it? Whose idea was this to be out here doing this? And then I'm like, oh no, it was my choice. It's a choice. I've made this choice. I can control my attitude. But do you ever have do you have the negative thoughts, and like how do you manage the negative thoughts? Like, can you just like stop them in their tracks and just like flip to sort of positive self-talk?
Negative thoughts will always kind of slip in. Like, why am I doing this? Who told you to do this? Or why? But ultimately, I think the achievement of it just outweighs the negative thoughts. Even if I am not going to hit one of my goals that I set myself, it's mainly just get it done. Even if you walk the rest of the way, get it done. And yeah, that's always my thing. Like if all else goes out the window, just make it to the finish line.
But
And
that
that
must be
will
one of your
always
goals,
push
though.
me. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay, because I was going to say that's got to be one of your goals. Like that's
yeah.
normally that's like the first goal is to finish it, and it's like thinking you're not achieving one of your goals. It's like you've got to have the goal of finishing. That's the big one
Yeah, I think one thing with me is that will always be the goal, but then sometimes I add in
to
other
get goal
goals when
creep.
I don't necessarily need to. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, you were so close of doing this. Okay, you should do this and you should add in this goal and you should add in that goal, which I need to pull back on. Yeah, sometimes, and even after finishing a particular event, I'll go, oh, but you could have actually done this, you know. If you would have pushed at that point, you could have pushed, and you didn't push, you would have achieved this. And then I need to have a talk into myself saying, what are you doing? Just celebrate your win.
I can see that as a good thing though, because that's almost like that's the like the after celebrating the achievement and acknowledging like what you've done, reflecting back is that's how you get better at your sports because then you can when you can identify like okay when I lost that pacer or when I changed my tactic at this point that's where I made a mistake. Okay, right, so next time stick to the same tactics, or actually it was at the 11 miler when I lost all my energy. Okay, note to self, I need to check in and make sure I've got my gel or my jelly babies or something, or actually yeah, the hydration isn't working, I am going to have to wear a runner's vest with like a 2 liter thing in. And actually I do need electrolytes because I sweat more. Like I think that's powerful having those thoughts. But I feel as though you're seeing that as a negative reflecting back. I was like, oh, why didn't I do that? Why didn't I do that instead? Am I understanding that right? Or am I putting
Yeah,
words in your head?
no,
No.
it's true. So it's yeah, seeing it as a negative. So if we, for example, flip to I just did this swim serpentine and I had a lot of negative self-talk in that. And I don't know why. I said oh, as long as I complete it in under 2 hours, I'll be fine. Let's just do it. But I didn't know why I gave myself a 2 hour time frame because actually I completed it so much quicker than that. And then when I did, and I looked at my watch, I went, but if you actually started up earlier in the pack, because you had to pass a lot of swimmers, you could have taken a good 5 minutes of your time. And it's kind of like beating myself up again. Oh, but you did that wrong and you didn't quite do that right. So yeah, it starts becoming negative. And then I'm like, okay, you need to just stop. Celebrate the fact you made it to the end. You got your medal and you did this, not about what you did wrong. And it's not really, oh, this is what you can improve for next time. It's more, why didn't you do this initially? And so
You are
that's
not
when
being
I'm
very
like,
nice to yourself, Naomi. You're being really mean to yourself.
I'm one of my worst critics.
I really want to flip that for you. Like, I think I always remember when someone said to me, "It's like, how would your best friend speak to you? Like, what would your best friend be saying to you, or what would your dad be saying to you?" And they would, I don't think they'd ever say anything like that. They'd all be just like, "Oh, you're doing an amazing job, Naomi. Well done, and you've done so great. And yeah, okay, you had an initial goal of 2 hours, but you absolutely smashed that. Next time, we could set we can reduce our time down even more. Oh, this is interesting. So
Yeah,
are you aware of this now, or have I just really like I feel as I'm bringing it to
oh
the forefront?
no, I'm very aware. Like I'm very self-aware of the things that I do to myself. I'm very encouraging to other people.
Yeah.
Like for me, if my goal was someone else's goal, I'll be like, you smash it, you did amazing. Look how far you've come. Look at your thought process before, and now look what you've done, etc. I'm very encouraging to other people. It's just when I'm like my own worst critic. Yeah. So it is learning to celebrate the small wins,
Yeah.
and it's something that I'm working on, and the reflection of how far I have come in my sporting journey. It's a lot. It is really a lot, and so I do need to reflect back a bit more and then celebrate those individual achievements, because people come up to me and say they're inspired by what I'm doing, and they're so like happy, and they're like, oh, well done, you've done all this amazing things, not knowing half this the the critiques I've been giving me myself in the background. But I know I need to celebrate my wins. I just need to, it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
But I do know I've achieved a lot. I know I do. And so that's why I also stop the negative self-talk in its tracks eventually, and just go, yeah, you don't need to be talking to yourself like this. Just celebrate what you've actually achieved. So yeah.
I really appreciate you sharing this though, because I know that you are not alone with this. There'll be so many people who are getting out there and following their passions, and they are running marathons, but they're still thinking, well, I'm not fast enough and I'm not breathing correctly. And it didn't look like how it looked on TV. And I'm not really a runner because I did Jeff. It's like, no, 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 no. You ran a marathon, whether you did walk, run. You covered off the distance, 42 odd kilometers. You're out there. You're swimming in the Serpentine. You're cycling from like London to Brighton. You're teaching other people how to swim. Oh, it's interesting. I think, but it's fascinating, like sometimes how we are our own worst enemies. But I think, like you said, then it's almost like to celebrate like the achievements, no matter how small they are, like the small wins, and almost to look back and see, actually, I've come really, really far, and you have come really, really far. Um, but looking forward, what would you like to be achieving in like 2025? Do you write your goals down? Do you have like a bucket list? Are there other races? You mentioned like a couple of races that you want to do. So is it going after like an Ironman, for example? What's on the dream list?
So like this year I did my first middle distance, so half Ironman or half Outlaw, because became part of Team Outlaw. And so they gave me the opportunity to do that, and I didn't even think I'll be doing that distance. So now it would be to take that next step and do the full distance triathlon all the way. It's just overcoming that marathon. But yeah, potentially I should technically put it in for 2025. I think I'm shying away from doing it it's going to be intense training, but that's definitely one thing I want to do for next year. So this year I also did that 2 mile swim for the Serpentine, and I got my classics medal. But they also have the 6 mile swim. So for me, I then want to go on and do the 6 mile swim next year. Those are probably my main goals there. And then anything else that comes in during the year, I'll add to it. But I should actually sign up for some events because I haven't actually really done anything to really plan my 2025. But I should get my training going. Yeah, so those are the main things there.
But I think, do you know what is interesting though? Is you've made such a valid point though, which is actually really important to discuss, which is actually it is intense training. And
Hmm.
actually, you know, you've got a life, you've also got a job as well. When you're doing like a 9 to 5 job, you've got other social commitments, you're director of TWR and you're a swim teacher for Black Tri Tribe, you've got activities on there, you're doing your speaking engagements, and that's a lot of time to fit in over sort of like, I don't know what the minimum time, like 4 or 5 months, you know what I mean? And actually to sign up for all of these things, it's not something I don't think you can almost, I mean, some people do, like, something, yeah, I'll just sign up for it and everything will be fine. But then I do think there is an element of being like realistic with the training commitment. Like, actually, what does the training look like? Can I fit this in? Can I balance this like with my life? I love how you're mixing like your cycle commuting. So, your way to work, you're getting your training in that way, etc. But that's a really big part of it. I mean, how are you fitting in exercise now? Like now, because, previously you said, you're going to a speaking event, you're coming back, you're finishing at 10:30, and then you're getting on your bike at 11, which is probably maybe not the most sensible thing. I was like, oh, I sound like a mum. It's like, that's not the most sensible thing to be doing.
Yeah,
But how are you balancing things out? Because sometimes there isn't solutions, there's only sacrifices, and it's almost like something does have to give. What are you giving up or what are you sacrificing?
that's the thing. It's the training ends up being sacrifice, but it really shouldn't be the thing that does. It's hard. It is really hard to fit everything in, especially if I'm going to be training for like an Ironman distance, a full distance. The training then intensifies. Or what I would then sacrifice is one of the disciplines. So I wouldn't go swim as much because, like, oh, okay, I know I can swim. If if anything really happens, yeah, I'm going to slow down drastically, but I'm still going to meet the calf. So then I'll focus on the running or I'll focus on the cycling. But I know I should really stick to a training plan and really push that and maybe not go to every social event. Like it's not the end of the world if you miss an event.
Or training becomes your social events. He's like, right, friends, we all coming for a run with me. He wants to join me here at 10K. Let's go. We're going to run and talk this one.
Literally, that has been part of what I was doing this year as well. If there were group running events or like Black Girls Do Run UK, we're sometimes doing runs on Thursdays, I would go and join them. Track on Mondays with 221 Club, that becomes kind of part of my training, my speed sessions. With my cycling club, we will go out on group rides. So that also becomes part of my training. But then I also know I need to put in training outside of those. So I focus specifically on what I need to do. But definitely, in order for me to continue with the training, I have made different community runs or cycles my go to. But another thing for me as well is actually booking an event and like smaller events. So if I'm training for a half, then I'll book in 10K running events and stuff like that. So that will keep me consistently training throughout because I paid for it. I'm going to go to it and put some training in there. So I use the mini events as training for the major event.
Yeah.
And that's been to push me along.
And the thing is that you found that works for you. Actually, if I've paid money for an event, I'm going to go to that event and use it and it fits into the training. I think, way back when I was doing like a lot of running, I got to a point where I was just like, I don't want to pay anymore to say run like a half marathon distance or to run a 10K. I think you get to the point where and you're doing your marathon training, you're building up so much and you're doing those distances on the regular. For me, I was just like, no, I'm not spending the money. I'll just do it by myself.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily work for everybody to be like to get out the house and to get out the house and go run 13 miles by yourself can be incredibly difficult. But if you're going out there's a big group, there's an atmosphere, you get a medal or a t-shirt at the end, you're running with other people, there's music, it's a whole event that can almost make it easier in a way.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. So when my middle distance was coming up and so after the London Marathon, my running training basically dropped off. I was like, yeah, I'm going to be consistent for the rest of the year. It didn't quite happen. I didn't really run much after that. And so something was posted up about an event in St. Albans, so a half marathon in St. Albans. And I went, okay, this is going to be your training, basically. So I signed up just to make sure I can still run a half marathon. And that was used as my training for when I did the Outlaw Holcomb, because it was also a hilly route. So it was good to just say, oh, can I actually run up the hills for a whole half? And that was my added training because I fell off. And so it's really hard because 2 years ago, I was actually sticking to a plan and doing that training. But then when I didn't have a coach this year, I was just doing whatever. And I think that's where I need a bit more structure to be a bit more consistent, because then I would just randomly sign up to an event and go, okay, this is now your motivation. This is what you're aiming for. But I know I need to put in a bit more structure so I know what I'm doing rather than swapping and changing and doing whatever I feel like.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my goal for next year, to be a bit more structured with my training.
I love that. And Naomi, you do share a lot on social media. Where are you most active? How can people connect with you, find out more of the different organizations that you work with and for? Where should people go?
You find me mainly on Instagram under nay.aminah, so nay.amina. And that's where you can keep up to date with me.
And Naomi, I'd love for you to have the final words of advice, final words of wisdom for other women out there who are in just a similar place to you at the moment, that they know they need more. And this will be words of advice for you as well. They do want more structure. They do want more consistency. What are the words of advice that you would tell somebody? Wait a minute, I'm trying to phrase this in a way, like the words of advice that you would tell yourself if you weren't telling yourself. Does that make sense? No. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. The key thing I would say is find a group, find a community, and don't be afraid to ask for help and ask for advice. There are so many people willing to share knowledge of what they've done in the past and what's really helped them. And whilst what's worked for them might not work for you, it's the tips that they're giving you to find out what works best for you has been kind of invaluable. So continue to ask for help and kind of find your sporting tribe to carry through.
Love that. Find your sporting tribe, find your group, find your community, ask for help. And like you say, not all of the advice is going to work for you, but there will be bits and pieces which you think, okay, do you know what? Yeah, that might work for me. I'm going to try that out. So Naomi, thank you for sharing more about your sport and fitness journey, how you've gotten into running and triathlons and swimming. Just best of luck with all your future challenges. Be kind to yourself. No more negative self-talk. Celebrate the wins, celebrate all the small steps that you are taking, and just look back on how far that you have come. But thank you so much for coming on to our podcast, and hopefully we'll be able to catch up with you in 12 months, 18 months and see how far you progress your journey then.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Hey, tribe. How are you all doing? For those in the Northern Hemisphere, I hope you are coping with the winter. And for those in the Southern Hemisphere, I am very jealous of all that sunshine that you are getting. I'm coping okay with the cold, dark days. And the other day, I got a massive boost. I was walking home from work and I thought I'll just check my email. And I got some notifications from Patreon, which always make my day. And I have got 3 new patrons in January, which is absolutely fantastic. So I do just want to say a massive thank you to Sandy, Paula, and Faye. Thank you so much for signing up as a patron, for becoming superstars, and for supporting the mission of the Tough Girl podcast, which is to increase the amount of female role models in the media, especially in relation to adventure and physical challenges. You are paying it forward. You are pushing the boundaries, helping to share these incredible stories. So we have new episodes coming out every Tuesday at 7 a.m. UK time. And I'm just going to give you a little heads up of who we are going to be speaking with next Tuesday. So on Tuesday, the 21st of January, we are speaking to Dr. Susanna O'Sullivan. She's a teacher, writer, activist, and adventurer. She's going to be sharing more about solo cycling across continents to empowering women in Palestine and beyond. So here's a little bit of the bio. Teacher, writer, activist, and adventurer, Susanna quit her job as a university lecturer in 2017 to cycle solo and unsupported from the UK to the Middle East. She camped all along the way in olive groves, in people's gardens, next to motorways, by rivers and lakes, and in caves. She faced many of her own fears on this trip and wants to share her experience to encourage other women to wild camp safely. In the Middle East, she spent 6 months in the West Bank, Palestine, teaching yoga to women in a refugee camp, working as a climbing guide and becoming a solidarity activist with victims of violence. For the next 2 years, she kept returning to Palestine to continue this work. She has just completed writing a book about what she experienced there, including her own battle with depression and PTSD. Her most recent adventures include thru-hiking a section of the Lebanon Mountain Trail, hitchhiking around the South Island of New Zealand, and driving a scooter 5,000 kilometers around the Lesser Sundi Islands of Indonesia. So this is a fantastic episode for you to be listening to. Now, I know that you've already hit that subscribe button, but if you are brand new to the Tough Girl podcast, I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And if you haven't left a review, then please do. It just takes a couple of moments just to share, some of the highlights, what you enjoy about the episode, so that when other women are scrolling through iTunes or Spotify and they're like, what should I listen to? I need some inspiration. I need something, I just need something to be different in my life. I need a new challenge. I need a new adventure. Fingers crossed they will discover the Tough Girl podcast and they'll click on an episode and start listening because they've read your review or because you've told them. Your word of mouth is so powerful. Sharing on your social media platforms, tagging me. I'm on Instagram at Tough Girl Challenges, sharing on Facebook, taking a screenshot. It really does make a massive difference. And if you listen to a particular episode and you're like, ooh, actually, I know X who's training for a triathlon, or actually, I know Y who's going after their first marathon, or actually, I know so-and-so is really struggling with their job at the moment and want to take a career break or take a sabbatical. Maybe they'd appreciate listening to one of the episodes on the Tough Girl podcast. So please do share that with them. You could literally change their life. And wouldn't that just be absolutely amazing? If you go and visit toughgirlchallenges.com, you can find more information about me, the Tough Girl podcast, which was started in 2015. This is the 10th year of the Tough Girl podcast. Amazing that we've been going this long. And that is due to the incredible support of patrons. There's 167 incredible men and women around the world who are supporting the work that I do. And if you'd like to become one of them, please do visit Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl podcast. There is a blog on the website. There's more information about my previous challenges and adventures. So most recently the most recent one, which is being currently shared at the moment, is the Tiararoa hike in New Zealand, walking 3,000 kilometers. Well, walking, stroke, mountain biking, stroke, canoeing, stroke, hitching. It was a massive combination. But yeah, that was a challenge with Zolio. All of the information is on the website. The vlogs are going live right now at this moment in time. So in January, we're starting on the South Island with new vlogs going live every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. We've just finished up the Queen Charlotte track and probably the Richmond Ranges at this point. So, incredible views, incredible scenery. I'm sure you'll absolutely love it. If you're a swimmer, if you're a cyclist, if you're a world traveler, a sailor, if you're an adaptive athlete, if you're in a wheelchair, if you're thinking of doing the Marathon des Sables or Mount Aconcagua, there is a massive resources section with dedicated pages linked to those specific episodes. So if you just want to dig into mountaineerings or polar explorers or ocean rowers, you'll find all of the episodes in one place. And you can also see which are the most popular popular episodes from each year. So the top 10 episodes of all time, as well as each year as well. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have an incredible day, an incredible week, incredible month, wherever you are, whatever you are doing. Oh no, I've started it wrong. How do I normally end? All that's left for me to say is, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, give it your all, give it 110%, get after it, go for it, believe in yourself, because I believe in you. Take care, lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.